to Golden Bloated, everybody. And if you are a college football fan, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. That is all we do here every single day. And send gear to represent your team and yourself to Golden Bloated. I guarantee you, if you send it to me, I will put it in my background. Send your gear to P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina 29657. Alright guys, we're going to go through the biggest games for tomorrow. There are some interesting matchups that are non-ranked matchups. So if I miss any matchups that I overlooked, let me know in the comment section. By the way, I did a separate video on West Virginia at Texas, so do not expect that game in this particular video. So I'm going to give you the matchup, the line, and who I think is going to win the game. First, we'll start with the Big 12. Texas Tech at number 25, Kansas State. Both of these teams 3-1, and both of these teams are coming off of some big wins. Texas Tech just upset a ranked Texas at home, and Kansas State just went on the road and upset Oklahoma. Kansas State is a 7.5-point favorite. If this was in Lubbock, I would take Texas Tech by a mile, but it is on the road. I'm still going with Texas Tech. I do not trust Adrian Martinez just yet. No, he had a decent game against Oklahoma, but he hasn't been proven to be consistent just yet. So I'm going to take the road dogs on this. Kansas State, the 7.5-point favorite, so I'm definitely taking the points, and I'm taking Texas Tech in the straight-up upset. Iowa State at Kansas. Iowa State 3-1, Kansas 4-0. Kansas undefeated. They're still not ranked. What do they have to do to get the respect to get ranked? Well, I think if they beat Iowa State, they're definitely going to get ranked. I've had them ranked for 2 weeks. They've done enough to impress me. Iowa State, the 3-point favorite. So yeah, I'm taking the underdog slight upset here as well. Give me the points, and Kansas with the straight-up upset. An underrated game in the Pac-12. Cal at Washington State. Both of these teams 3-1. Washington State, a 4-point favorite. Well, I think Cal is a little bit of a smokescreen. They're a very small team. They've gotten some wins that they probably shouldn't have gotten. I'm actually going to take Washington State, and I think Washington State beats Cal big. So look for Washington State to go 4-1. And I do think the Cougars do eventually get ranked. They're a good team this year. On over to the SEC for the last under-the-radar game. I'm talking about LSU and Auburn. For some strange reason, both of these teams are just 3-1. LSU is an 8-point favorite on the road, and usually I take Auburn because it's very difficult to win at Jordan-Hare. But the more I looked at Auburn, the more I realized they are a bad team. Maybe an all-time worst 3-1 team. So give me LSU, and I'm actually going to lay the 8. On to the bigger games. First, a game in the Pac-12, and it's going to go on tonight. Number 15, Washington at UCLA. Both of these teams are undefeated at 4-0. Washington just a 3-point favorite. That's kind of surprising to me. I think they are the far better team over UCLA. I think UCLA is more of a smokescreen type of 4-0, and I think they get exposed tonight. Let's see if the Rose Bowl can actually put in more than 20,000 fans tonight. Next up, we're jumping over to the SEC. Number 17, Texas A&M at Mississippi State. Both of these teams are 3-1. Mississippi State, a 4-point favorite. I think Texas A&M is one of the more overrated top 25 teams. If they do go on the road and beat Mississippi State, then I will finally concede and admit that they are a top 25 team. But I don't think that's what happens. I think Mississippi State does beat Texas A&M, and I think they cover. Back on over to the Pac-12, Oregon State at number 12, Utah. Both of these teams are 3-1. Utah is a 10.5-point favorite. I understand why it is at Utah, but I think that's a little much. I do think that Utah gets the win, but I don't think that they cover. Oregon State is a better team than people realize, and I think the Beavers will eventually crack the top 25. Next up, back to the Big 12. Number 18, Oklahoma, coming off a home loss against Kansas State on the road to TCU. Oklahoma's 3-1, TCU 3-0. Oklahoma a 6-point favorite. Does Oklahoma lose 2 games in a row? I don't think so. I think Oklahoma is better than what we saw last week. I think they're going to be mad. I think they're going to be focused. And I think they're going to be all over TCU. I'll take Oklahoma and lay the 6. No upset here. Next game, back to the SEC. Number 2, Alabama at number 20, Arkansas. Alabama 4-0. Arkansas 3-1. Alabama is a 17-point favorite. I think it's going to be a smidge closer than people realize. So I think Alabama wins, but not by 17. So I'll take Alabama to win, but not to cover the 17 points. Back on over to the Big 12. Number 9, Oklahoma State at number 16, Baylor. Oklahoma State 3-0, Baylor 3-1. Baylor a 2.5-point favorite. This is a very interesting game. Probably one of the best games we saw all year last year. If this was at Oklahoma State, I'd probably take the Cowboys. But I got to take Baylor. I'm very worried about Oklahoma State's defense. Their offense is looking great, but that defense has taken that significant step backwards this year. So I'll take Baylor, and I think they cover as well. Let's jump back to the ACC for number 22, Wake Forest at number 23, Florida State. Yeah, Florida State ranked. I've had Florida State ranked for a couple weeks. Wake Forest is 3-1. Florida State's 4-0. Florida State, the 6.5-point favorite. This is very, very tricky. Wake Forest doesn't have a good defense, but they have a great offense. And I think Florida State doesn't have a great offense, but I think their defense is respectable. So this being at home, I am going to take Florida State, and I think they win by a touchdown, so I think they barely cover by a half a point. Florida State stays undefeated, and they climb even higher in the rankings. Next up, a quick jump back to the SEC. The second biggest game of the day. Number 7, Kentucky at number 14, Ole Miss. Both of these teams are 4-0. Ole Miss is a 6.5 point favorite. I think Kentucky is the better team. They've impressed me more, and I know they had a letdown game last week, but who didn't? A bunch of teams had a letdown game last week, including Ole Miss. But this being at Ole Miss, I think it does give the Rebels a chance. We can see that missing Matt Corral is affecting the offense. This offense is nowhere near as potent as what it was last year. I think Kentucky comes in and upsets Ole Miss and proves that they are for real, and depending on what happens above them, maybe they can slide up a little closer to the top 5. That Kentucky-Georgia game is looking pretty good right now. And finally, the game that, in my opinion, is the biggest game of the day. It is in the ACC. Number 10, NC State at number 5, Clemson. Both of these teams are 4-0. Clemson is the 6.5 point favorite. Yes, I did like what Clemson's offense did last week, but it was against a defense that basically didn't exist. If this game were in Raleigh, I'd probably take NC State to beat Clemson again. But think about this. Clemson had one of their worst offensive performances, one of their worst offensive teams last year against NC State, and it still took overtime in Raleigh for NC State to beat Clemson. I think Clemson gets their revenge. I think they cover the spread, and I think they beat the Wolfpack by 2 touchdowns. Now, I do respect NC State's defense. They have a good defense, but NC State does not have a good offense. Clemson has a good defense. I don't like that matchup for NC State. This will be a low-scoring game, but NC State just won't be able to score enough points. I'll take Clemson in a low-scoring game, but still to cover the spread. Something like a 27-13 type of deal. Y'all let me know in the comments section what you think about my picks, and let me know who you have winning these games. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.